Page 71. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, so you've got your plan, Swamu said, resigned. He'd seen Saitama's stubbornness firsthand, especially when it came to partnering up with someone like Sagi. Once Saitama made up his mind, there was no changing it. Yep. Saitama clapped Sagi on the shoulder. They were about the same height, even though Saitama was much younger. Sagi, being from a common background, looked a little malnourished, barely taller than Saitama. Take it easy. Hope to see you around. Saitama turned, leaving Sagi with just his back in view, the knife at his waist casting a long shadow. You too, Saitama. Sagi's voice was quiet, but Saitama's enhanced hearing picked it up. Saitama served as a guard for the wounded troops. After almost 2 weeks, they finally made it back to Konoha. They say you leave a kid and come back a grown-up, but that didn't really apply to Saitama. He'd only been gone for a little over half a year. Still, as he walked the familiar path home after his guard duty, it felt a little different. While he didn't feel like much time had passed, everything he'd been through felt like a lifetime. A few near-death experiences will do that to you. It was already past 3 p.m. when they reached Konoha, and another 2 hours to get everything sorted. The sun was setting as he walked home, casting long shadows everywhere. Everything looked the same, almost exactly as he'd left it, except Konoha felt quieter, and the shopping district wasn't as lively. Creak. Saitama pushed open the front door and saw the kitchen light on. Shursui. What's up so late? Saitama isn't back, and I'm doing alright, too. Uchiha Xiang's voice came from the kitchen. She'd heard someone arrive. Usually at this hour, the only one who'd visit her was Uchiha Shursui, who was often with Saitama. The kitchen door swung open, and Grandma Xiang stood there, wearing an apron. The air hung still for a moment, the golden sunset making the yard look surreal. Oh, it's Saitama. Grandma Xiang held up a plate of food. She covered her mouth, shocked and disbelieving. It's me, Grandma Xiang. Saitama said, looking at the familiar face of someone he considered family, even though they weren't blood relatives. He opened his arms and walked over to hug a still stunned Uchiha Xiang. She was overwhelmed. Saitama, you've been gone so long, I almost didn't recognize you. Uchiha Xiang patted his back, feeling how much taller and bigger he'd gotten. Well, I'm still the same Saitama you know, right? He asked softly, not with the same detached tone he used on the battlefield. Chapter 31, My Personal Hell. Have you eaten, Saitama? I'm cooking, Uchiha Xiang asked, concern in her eyes. No matter what, he was still the boy she'd helped raise. No, Grandma, I rushed back because I was craving your cooking, Saitama said. His voice was relatively quiet, but it sounded gentle to Uchiha Xiang. Okay, I'll get right to it, you wait, Grandma Xiang said, turning back to the kitchen. She handed him the plate she'd been holding, which contained a few seaweed rice balls. Okay. Saitama nodded and followed her into the kitchen. Huff. Huff. Saitama was breathing hard, hands on his knees, clothes soaked in sweat. He'd been back for 2 days, and hadn't taken a break, spending most of the day at the guard's training ground. Changing the nature of lightning chakra is just an application of the Chidori style. The power of the simulated Chidori doesn't seem as strong as the original. Something feels off. Some of the targets he hit were scorched black, others were pierced. Saitama, how's it going? Uchiha-sen happened to be at the training ground, watching with his permission. It's alright. A bit tiring, Saitama said, wiping his forehead. Using lightning chakra to stimulate cells, that's kind of like what they do in the village hidden in the clouds. Seems pretty effective, too, Sen said, touching his chin thoughtfully. It's a powerful support method when you have enough chakra, Mori said seriously. He was invested in Saitama's progress and was assessing his methods. Shwa. Saitama pulled out the knife and strapped it to his waist. Anything going on with the clan lately? He asked. Nothing major, same old stuff, though the Hokage elders seem to have changed their tune about the Uchiha's lack of effort in the war, Mori said, waving his hand dismissively. Oh, so the old agreement's worthless now, Saitama said. He knew that the Uchiha had an agreement with Konoha's higher-ups that allowed them to stay out of the fighting until absolutely necessary. It was meant to protect the Konoha family, and the Hyuga clan had a similar arrangement. The elders think the Uchiha are strong but didn't pull their weight on the battlefield, like we don't see ourselves as part of Konoha. Uchiha Mori sounded a little strange. As far as he knew, the clan and Konoha hadn't ever gotten along all that well. A lot of the younger clan members made a point of separating the clan from the village. What does the captain think? Saitama asked, knowing that Mori was Uchiha Fugaku's right-hand man in the village, and Fugaku discussed a lot of his decisions with him. What else can we do? The captain isn't planning on sending more troops to the Sand Village front. The village hidden in the mist is having a bit of a tiff with us, so he's going to send some people there to appease those elders, Sen revealed after a moment's thought. This hasn't been announced to the younger members yet, and the captain hasn't confirmed it. Well, that should be next year, I'll have some time then, so I can be included. Saitama said, smiling while stroking the knife at his waist. Okay, if you have something to do, go ahead. Mori waved his hand, knowing that Uchiha Fugaku had been looking for Saitama. Wiping his sweat, Saitama turned and left. Some of the other members of the escort team were still practicing on the other side of the training grounds. They hadn't gone to the front lines, and Shui hadn't returned from his mission. Page 72. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Walking slowly, Saitama regulated his breathing, letting it return to normal. His sweat lessened, and his strength came back quickly. This body is already in top shape. Chakra stimulation activates the cells, improving it even more. The recovery after training is amazing. He wondered what Uchiha Fugaku wanted. He'd come to see him earlier. Fugaku was still in his office. Saitama knocked on Fugaku's door. Excuse me. Come in, a deep, steady voice responded. Saitama entered and stopped a few feet from Fugaku. Captain. Welcome back. How's it feel? Fugaku was impressed with Saitama's strength and talent. Showing his appreciation for the younger ninja, he held off on the main topic. The village is definitely more relaxing, but too much comfort isn't good. Saitama paused, choosing his words carefully. Lin Chuan's report about your performance on the battlefield was glowing. You did the Uchiha name proud. Fugaku said, a hint of pride in his voice. His clan member had brought honor to the clan, reflecting well on him as the current leader. What are your plans now that you're back? Fugaku rested his chin on his hands, half leaning on the table, his eyes on Saitama. I'll rest for a few days, then take on some missions. No plans to go back to the battlefield anytime soon. It's not the right time. Saitama looked at the table, then back at Fugaku. Understood. Even though Konoha is at war, it's not a full-scale conflict yet. The village still has plenty of missions, big and small. And many families have their own quotas. Uchiha Fugaku nodded, leaning back in his chair. Shirsue's back too. Catch up with him. It's been a while. Fugaku smiled, reminding Saitama. If that's all, I'll head out, Captain. All right. Go ahead. So, you just came back like that? Shisui asked, surprised. It was unlike Saitama, who had been eager to get to the battlefield before. What else would I do? Spend New Year's there. Saitama shook his head. He was now taller than Shisui, making Shisui feel like he was talking to an older brother. Did something happen? Shisui asked cautiously, glancing around. Shisui, what do you think about the conflict between Konoha and Sand Village? Konoha will win, no doubt about it. If it was just Sand Village, Konoha would win easily. Saitama and Shisui sat on a bench. Shisui sat straight, while Saitama slouched slightly. After a moment, Saitama continued. The village is asking the Uchiha to send more troops. It's not like before. Shisui frowned. He knew about the agreement between the village and the major clans. He also knew the current situation didn't seem dire enough to warrant it. Mist Village in the east has been stirring, and so has Stone Village. Konoha's position isn't great, so asking the Uchiha to contribute is understandable. Shisui gave his opinion. Forget about that. It's not our concern. Let the higher-ups and the clan leader worry about it. Saitama leaned back, looking helpless. Even though his strength had improved a lot, he still had no real authority because of his age and experience. I escorted a fire country minister to Tang country recently and ran into some cloud ninja, Shisui said, describing his mission. What? Saitama asked, wondering if Cloud Village was also planning something against Konoha. Hadn't they been fighting Stone Village? Why would they be in conflict with Konoha? The Cloud Ninjas were escorting their Thunder Country minister to Tang Country as well. Saitama got an idea. Why is Cloud Village visiting Tang Country? Are they trying to get permission to pass through? He considered this silently, not saying anything. The Cloud Ninjas looked powerful, and they were all good with knives. Kinda intimidating, though. Shisui added. 3 of the 4 members of the Cloud Ninja team carried knives. Cloud Village is a martial arts village. Many of their ninjas are skilled with swords and lightning, Saitama said, then paused, realizing the description sounded familiar. They also have a special ninjutsu that gives their ninjas better physical abilities than other ninja villages. Shisui glanced at Saitama strangely, and Saitama realized the description fit him closely. Cloud Village's fighting style was similar to Saitama's, but their system was more refined. Saitama was just copying what he thought was good, based on his memory and understanding. I'm gonna rest for a few days. Even though I didn't face any huge dangers on this mission, staying on edge for so long is tiring, Shisui said, unusually expressive. He half-stretched. I'm gonna head back. Wanna come over for dinner? Saitama stood up. It was getting late. Sure. It's been ages since I had Granny Xiang's cooking. I miss it. Shisui perked up and stood with Saitama. Let's go then. Wanna tell your mom you'll be out? Saitama nodded. Nah, I told my dad I was coming to find you when I handed in the mission report. Shisui shook his head. Alright. They smiled at each other, dropping the subject. What's the battlefield like, Saitama? Shisui asked suddenly as they walked. Seeing Saitama again, Shisui noticed the change in his aura. It had become deeper, and he felt a subtle pressure. It's way more brutal than a mission. You can abandon a mission, but on the battlefield, you either kill the enemy or get killed by them. A hint of coldness entered Saitama's voice, and he slowed, as if remembering. Page 73. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'm going to the battlefield next time too. Shisui said, gazing ahead. It'll be a real eye-opener, Saitama responded, clapping a hand on Shisui's shoulder, leaning in close. Later, at dinner, the two of them polished off a huge pot of braised pork and a mountain of seaweed rice balls. Shisui hugged her stuffed stomach and bid farewell to Granny Xiang and Saitama before heading home. These peaceful days wouldn't last. Returning to Saitama's village, she couldn't shake the feeling that the war with the Sand Village would drag on forever. There was no reason to stick around. Next year would be Konoha Year 46, which meant the Battle of Kikyo Mountain, a major turning point in ninja history, was right around the corner. Come to think of it, after all this time in the Uchiha clan, Saitama still hadn't crossed paths with the influential figure he'd been expecting. Where was Obito Uchiha right now? The future big bad should be a Chunin by now, right? In the still of night, time ticked by, bringing the dawn ever closer. Chapter 32, Leave the trash where it belongs, in the dark. Clang! Clang! Boom. Boom. Two figures blurred together in a flurry of motion, sparks flying. Whoosh! One of the figures was sent flying, crashing to the side. Boom! The figure hit the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Ahem! Shisui coughed. Sayu, how's your speed so insane? Shisui asked, dusting himself off, a hint of frustration in his voice. They'd been training together whenever they had a free moment for the past few days. Most of the time, Saitama completely outclassed Shisui, unless Saitama was deliberately focusing on specific ninjutsu or taijutsu techniques. Easy there. I'm barely trying, Saitama said calmly, standing across from Shisui as if he hadn't just been in a brutal fight. Alright, you're too good for me, Shisui teased, playfully swatting his butt, a stark contrast to his usual serious demeanor. Your telekinesis is getting pretty fast, but my reactions are just quicker, Saitama said, tapping his eye to emphasize the point. I still haven't gotten the hang of that ninjutsu of yours. It feels a little heavy on the body, Shisui admitted. They'd traded techniques recently. Saitama took a crack at Shisui's snapshot, and Shisui was attempting Saitama's Thunder Chakra mode, a fair exchange of jutsu. The thing was, Saitama had picked up snapshot quickly. He wasn't a master yet, but he could use it in a fight. Shisui, on the other hand, couldn't quite nail Thunder Chakra mode. He could force it, but it was seriously draining on his body. Maybe it just came down to talent. For some reason, the snapshot technique didn't flow as naturally for Saitama as it did for Shisui. Let's take a break. We've been at it all morning, Saitama suggested, putting his hands on Shisui's shoulders and steering him towards the sidelines. You two make me feel like I've wasted the last 20 years. Sen, who was also on the training ground, said ruefully. Master Mori, please don't say things like that. I'm still only a jounin, Shisui said humbly. Truth be told, his skills were at chunin level, but he hadn't bothered with the promotion process. I've watched you two grow up. Where did the time go? Especially Saitama. I still remember how he looked when I first met him, Mori chuckled. Enough about that. It's lunchtime. Shisui's buying us barbecue, you wanna come? Saitama said, a playful grin on his face. Oh. That's right, I wouldn't miss one of Shisui's treat for the world. Mori's eyes lit up. Shisui wasn't exactly known for his generosity, so this was a rare treat. Huh? Shisui blinked, looking confused. Hadn't Saitama just suggested a break? How did this turn into a barbecue invitation? But with both Saitama and Mori looking at him expectantly, Shisui had no choice but to nod. Alright, let's head to the commercial district. There's a new yakiniku place called Yakiniku Q that's pretty good. Sounds good. Lead the way, Saitama winked at Mori before following Shisui out of the training ground, leaving Uchiha-san to scratch his head in confusion. What was that wink supposed to mean? Sen decided he couldn't keep up with the brain of a genius. The commercial district wasn't too crowded, and the three of them quickly arrived at the restaurant Shisui had mentioned. Boss, 50 plates of meat, stat. And plenty of that special spicy sauce. Shisui called out as they entered. The owner, a man in his 40s with a neatly trimmed goatee, greeted them with a knowing smile. Hey, it's Shisui. Grab a table, and I'll get that meat right out to you. The boss said before heading to the back. The place only had 4 employees, including the owner, who had to pull his weight. You come here often? Sen asked, noticing how familiar Shisui and the owner were. I ate here once right after they opened. The sauce is amazing. Since Saitama left for the front lines, I usually eat here. Shisui explained, rubbing the back of his head. The place looks great. Saitama added. The restaurant wasn't big, with only 6 tables. Any more and it'd feel cramped. The decor was thoughtful. There were potted plants scattered throughout the restaurant and a small pond in the center, where a few ornamental turtles swam lazily. stepping inside gave you a feeling of peace. It was still early, so Saitama and his friends were the first customers. The meat arrived quickly, filling the table and the shelf next to their seats. Saitama, you have to try this. The sauce here is something else, Shisui said, placing a few slices of meat on the grill. As the aroma of cooking meat filled the air, he set a plate of sauce in front of each of them. Smells fantastic. Sen breathed in deeply. Let's eat. It's not every day Shisui's buying, Saitama said, grabbing some meat. He was more interested in who was paying the bill. Shisui's face darkened at the remark. Ha! Sen laughed, finding the exchange hilarious. The meat cooked in minutes, and they eagerly grabbed it, dipping it in the sauce before digging in. I gotta say, Shisui's got great taste. This barbecue is legit. Sen praised after taking a bite. Shisui smiled, and even the owner, who was standing by the door, puffed out his chest a little at the compliment. Welcome, please come in. The owner greeted, another customer arriving. They were still eating when the new customer walked in. Page 74. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not really caring, Saitama kept chowing down on the grilled meat in front of him, adding more from the plate to the grill. Saitama. Saitama. Shisui, who was sitting to Saitama's left, nudged him a few times with his elbow. I'm trying to get my fill here. I can't even eat my own share of the barbecue. Saitama knew Shisui was eyeing his meat. No, man. Check out the door. Shisui whispered, sounding exasperated. Saitama crammed a few more large pieces of barbecued meat into his mouth, savoring the intense meaty flavor. As he chewed, the sauce mixed with the meat, making the taste even better. Finally, Saitama looked up, following Shisui's gaze towards the entrance. There were 5 people standing there, the owner of the barbecue restaurant, and 4 ninjas, and Saitama recognized them. The blonde guy in the lead was the future 4th Hokage, famously known as the Yellow Flash, Namikaze Minato. Behind him were 2 guys and a girl. The one with the white hair was Hitaki Kakashi, a ruthless dude who could throw down with anyone. The black-haired kid with the goggles was none other than Uchiha Obito, the future big bad of the entire ninja world, who almost destroyed everything, and the last person was Obito's crush. Well, ain't that a kick in the head? It's the Konoha crew, Saitama said, a slight smile forming on his face as he turned his gaze away. Saitama, you see them? Shisui whispered again. Yeah, I see, M. Saitama's tone was casual, but he was feeling a little excited on the inside. The leader is the up-and-coming Jonin Namikaze Minato. And the silver-haired guy behind the mask is Hitaki Kakashi, a straight-up genius from the Hitaki clan. He's super strong, Saitama, even you might have a tough time against him. At this point, Shisui sounded like a total fanboy, introducing his idol. I know, Saitama replied, narrowing his eyes slightly as he looked at Kakashi. Sensei, let's eat here. This place looks cool. At the door, Obito bounced around like a hyperactive kid. Rin, what do you think? Minato Namikaze turned to the only girl in the group. Since Obito wants to, let's give it a try. It's been ages since I had barbecue. We should try it, Noera Rin said, a hint of exasperation in her eyes. Rin's the best. Yeah. Obito, happy that Rin had supported him, threw his hand in the air and pumped his fist. Idiot, Kakashi muttered. Huh. As if feeling someone watching him, Kakashi scanned the restaurant and saw 3 ninjas at a table, all dressed in similar black outfits. Kakashi saw a symbol on the back of the taller ninja who had his back to him. It was the same as the one on Obito's clothes. Could it be Uchiha? At the same time, he noticed the younger guy who had been watching him earlier, who had a ninja sword leaning against his chair. Saitama nodded and gave Kakashi a slight smile. He really admired Kakashi as a brave and resourceful genius ninja. Kakashi looked surprised for a second, and Minato nodded to Saitama. He didn't seem to know them, but he picked up on Saitama's friendly vibe. "What's up, Kakashi? See someone you know?" Namikaze Minato glanced at Kakashi and then noticed Saitama's table, and saw Uchiha Sr. "Namikaze Minato Jonin, fancy seeing you here," Uchiha-san said, having felt the gaze behind him, and turned to see Namikaze Minato standing at the door. "Alright, let's head on in," Minato Namikaze said, walking inside. "Hey, son, you're here too." Minato Namikaze approached with a warm voice and a friendly smile. Since they were both Konoha Jonin, well-known figures in the village, Uchiha-sen and Namikaze Minato had communicated with each other, so they naturally knew each other. "This place has some killer barbecue, you should try it," Sen said casually, leaning back in his chair. "We just might," Minato Namikaze replied, smiling politely at Saitama and Shisui sitting opposite Mori. You gotta give it to Minato Namikaze, he was a really friendly dude. Saitama felt an instant sense of connection with him because of his smile. "Hey there, Minato Jonin," Shisui said excitedly, standing up and bowing respectfully. He'd heard all about Minato's story, how a regular guy made it to the top. Meeting him in person, he couldn't help but feel excited. "Hey." Shisui's excitement seemed to make Namikaze Minato a little awkward, and he quickly waved his hand in response. "Have a seat over here, next to Mariho Ninja," Minato Namikaze told Kakashi and the others, gesturing to the next table. "Sir Mori." Obito ran over to greet Uchiha Senator as a member of the Uchiha clan. He knew that Uchiha-sen was the current clan leader's right-hand man and a powerful young ninja. As for Saitama and Shisui, the Uchiha clan was so big, not everyone could recognize them. "Hey," Sen acknowledged him with a nod. He kind of remembered this kid. Wasn't he promoted to Chunin not too long ago? Rin was looking at Saitama's table curiously and felt that all three of them had a very special vibe, especially the ninja who leaned his sword near his feet. Her gut instinct was telling her that this dude was super strong. "He's younger than us," Rin thought, studying Saitama. "Yo, boss. 30 plates of meat, coming up." Obito yelled out, revealing his true colors as soon as he sat down. Alright, coming right up." The owner quickly scurried off towards the back. "Keep eating, man. This kind of good meat isn't something we can have every day," Saitama told Shisui, pulling him back down to his seat. Minato Namikaze smiled and sat down at his table, deciding not to hang around there anymore. "Sensei, who are those guys?" Rin asked quietly as soon as she sat down, her eyes full of curiosity. Kakashi was all ears as well, but his eyes were glued to the kitchen. "That's Uchiha-sen, a jonin from the Uchiha clan. I don't know the other two that well. They must be Mori's underlings. They seem like decent guys," Namikaze Minato said, nodding toward Saitama's table in a friendly gesture. Chapter 33 The world seems so peaceful. Saitama's appetite had been growing bigger and bigger recently. He had eaten almost 50 of the 30 plates of grilled meat by himself, which surprised some people around him. Luckily, Jishui had ordered 50 plates, otherwise it would not be enough for 3 people. Full of food and drink, Saitama drank the drink presented by the boss, a kind of herbal tea, and sat on the seat. Page 75. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "Minato, I'm heading out." Mori called to Namikaze Minato as he stood up to leave. "Alright, Mori, see you later. We're still gonna hang out here for a bit." Minato smiled, placing his chopsticks on the table and looking up. That was awesome." Obito exclaimed, clearly enjoying his meal. Kakashi, looking disgusted, subtly distanced himself. "Kakashi, maybe we can talk sometime," Saitama said, his hand resting on his sword. As he passed the table, Kakashi paused, glanced up at Saitama, and gave a slight nod. He wasn't sure of Saitama's abilities, but he agreed with the sentiment, so it was just a polite acknowledgement. "Let's go, Shisui." Shisui was still at the counter, settling the bill and seemingly emptying his wallet. Following Mori, Saitama exited the restaurant. Shisui paid, nodded once more towards Minato's table, and hurried to catch up. "Wait up, Saitama." "Shursui." "Saitama?" Minato mused, looking after them. The names sounded familiar, like those of some of the talented young ninjas who graduated early, like Kakashi. He turned back to his meal, eating deliberately, chewing slowly, giving off the air of a scholar. "So, what's your impression of Kakashi?" Mori asked casually as they walked. "He's definitely strong, but not on my level," Saitama replied honestly, knowing Mori was asking about Kakashi. After all, Saitama had taken down countless jonin on the battlefield, and Kakashi, still just a chunin at this point, didn't measure up in his eyes. "Oh. Don't get cocky. He's got a reputation as a prodigy, so you can't underestimate him," Mori chuckled, his body relaxed, a hint of playful teasing in his voice. "Is Saitama really that good?" Shursui wondered. He didn't have a clear picture of Saitama's battlefield feats, only knowing that he'd performed exceptionally well. He hadn't asked Saitama directly, and Saitama hadn't bothered to elaborate. "Meh, I'm alright," Saitama shrugged, falling into step with the other two. Shursui glanced back and forth between Saitama and Mori but didn't press the issue. "Let's get back to training. It's almost New Year's, and then it'll be time to prep for our next mission," Saitama said, sounding relaxed. "Sounds good." Shursui agreed, while Mori remained silent. Back at the training grounds, the other guard team members were having lunch. The food at the compound was decent today, with plenty of meat, but it didn't quite compare to the barbecue they just had. Saitama sat down and chatted with the guards for a while before pulling Shursui aside to the far end of the training area. "Lord Hokage, here's the battle report from the Sand Village front." In the Hokage Tower, a ninja wearing an animal mask handed a report to Hiruzen Sarutobi in his office. Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded, tapping his pipe and picking up the report. This information had been relayed directly by Orochimaru. Of course, he had his own sources too. The more he read, the more surprised Sarutobi became. "You're dismissed," Hiruzen Sarutobi instructed, dismissing the Umbu still standing before his desk. Several Jonin kills in a row. Outnumbered but still victorious. Uchiha. Sharingan, 2 Tomo. 7 years old. Hiruzen Sarutobi seized upon the key points in the report. "Isn't Uchiha Saitama the one who applied to graduate earlier this year? I seem to remember another Uchiha with him. What was his name?" Hiruzen Sarutobi tapped his pipe against the desk, his eyes narrowed thoughtfully, deepening the wrinkles on his face. In his previous report, Orochimaru had only mentioned that the fighting with the Sand Village had escalated into a full-blown battle, with both he and Raza injured. This report focused solely on Uchiha Saitama, his admiration evident between the lines. "Why does it have to be an Uchiha?" The third Hokage put down his pipe and rubbed his forehead. Setting it aside, Sandai picked up another report lying on the side. It was the ninja roster submitted by Uchiha Fugaku, listing the ninjas Uchiha planned to send to the Mist Village after the new year. Due to pressure from the elders, Uchiha was sending a team of nearly 150, almost two-thirds of the clan's ninja force. His eyelids drooping, Sandai scanned the list, his thoughts unreadable. Creak. The door creaked open, and an old man with bandages covering half his body and leaning on a cane shuffled in. The third Hokage looked up, surprised and with a hint of annoyance in his eyes. "Danzo." Danzo marched straight toward Sandai as he entered, putting down the document in his hand. Hiruzen Sarutobi leaned back, holding his pipe. "What is it, Danzo?" he asked in a neutral tone, a flicker of unease in his heart. Danzo's disregard for his position as Hokage irritated him. "Has Uchiha's roster been submitted yet?" Danzo rested his hands on his cane, standing before the desk. "This is the Hokage's office," Sandai said calmly, a hint of irritation in his voice. Danzo seemed to realize his disrespect, and lowered his head. Schwa, Sandai tossed the roster onto the desk, resuming smoking his pipe, the smoke clouding his features. Danzo grabbed the list and began scanning it, eventually finding the name he was looking for, Uchiha Saitama. I want to recruit Uchiha Saitama into Root. Page 76. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a pause, Danzo finally spoke his mind. No way. You have to know who he is. The third Hokage sighed, a puff of smoke escaping his lips. He sounded weary. So what if he's Uchiha? Those who crave Root will never get it. And frankly, Root needs an Uchiha. Danzo's tone was firm. He'd studied Saitama's file and, if anything, understood the boy's potential even better than the Hokage did. Forget it. The Uchiha clan would never agree. The third Hokage countered, a troubled look clouding his eyes. Let's consider other candidates. That's all I have to say. The Hokage waved dismissively, returning to the documents on his desk. Humph. Danzo's eyes narrowed, frustration flickering across his face. But as the mastermind behind Root, he wouldn't give up so easily. The Hokage might refuse him direct recruitment, but Danzo had other plans. He'd never been fond of the Uchiha, but that didn't mean he couldn't find a use for them. Tap, 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 the sound of Danzo's cane faded. He felt his body weakening, old injuries resurfacing to torment him. The time for that collaboration was drawing near. Danzo made up his mind. The afternoon flew by, and Saitama and Shirsui's sparring proved fruitful. Saitama's understanding of his snapshot technique was steadily improving. Later, Shirsui. I'm heading home. Saitama casually slung his training blade over his shoulder and strode off, leaving a spent Shirsui behind. After their intense session, Shirsui was physically and mentally drained. Saitama's raw power made him feel like he could never measure up. Yeah, go ahead. I'll hang around a bit longer. Though exhausted, Shirsui managed a wave. It was around 5 in the afternoon, and dusk was settling in. Winter was coming, and the air had a definite chill. Saitama, clad in a close-fitting black training suit, a high-necked top common among the Uchiha, paired with standard ninja pants, sauntered home. Soon, he turned into a dead-end alley, completely deserted. Come on out. Whoever's lurking in the shadows. The moment Saitama had left the training grounds, he'd felt eyes on him. The stalker was being careful, but they couldn't fool Saitama's natural sensitivity to chakra. Saitama's right hand tightened on his blade. Chakra surged within him. Whoosh, a masked figure materialized on the wall. Just as expected of a talent valued by our superiors. The newcomer's opening line was cryptic. The third Danzo. Saitama frowned, studying the figure before him. This get-up screamed Umbu or Root, likely Danzo. Given a tone, Saitama kept his expression neutral, his mind racing. Who are you? Saitama asked, feigning ignorance. He didn't let on that he already knew who he was dealing with. Uchiha Saitama, I'm with Root. I represent the will of my superior and invite you to join us. The Root ninja stood tall, a hint of arrogance in his voice. Root? Saitama asked, feigning confusion. Yes, Danzo's Root. The Root ninja nodded. Think of us as Umbu's elite training division. Closely tied to Umbu, but separate. And Umbu reports directly to the Hokage. The Root ninja explained. So, the Hokage sent you? Saitama asked, playing dumb. You'll find out once you join. The Root ninja didn't answer, his eyes locked on Saitama. So? What do you say? He asked Saitama, lowering his voice. Heh. Saitama chuckled, realizing the Root ninja wasn't exactly playing with a full deck. Whoosh, Saitama vanished. What? The Root operative's eyes widened, his body tensing. Don't move. A blade pressed against his lower back. Cold sweat broke out. He was frozen, utterly blindsided by Saitama's speed. A jolt of electricity pulsed through his clothes and into his body, paralyzing him. I don't trust a ninja who won't show his face, especially when he comes out of nowhere. Saitama whispered from behind, his icy tone sending a shiver down the root ninja's spine. Go back and tell whoever sent you, I'm not interested. Saitama withdrew his blade, jumped off the wall, and headed home. Huff. The root operative sighed in relief. He'd genuinely felt the sting of death for a moment, utterly helpless against this kid. Ignoring the lingering numbness in his back, he watched Saitama leave the alley, and decided to report back. Interesting, very interesting. Saitama brushed the incident aside as he walked away. His growing strength was bound to attract attention. But he wasn't just some ordinary Uchiha anymore. He wouldn't cower like a rabbit facing predators. Strength, as always, was the key. Only with power could you make yourself heard in this village. Chapter 34, the so-called winner should be in the story. Dinner was at home, and Grandma Kaoru had made fish soup, which had cost a small fortune at the village market. With the situation in the land of water getting worse, fish prices had skyrocketed. Kaoru Uchiha insisted that Saitama have all the fish, spooning it from the pot into his bowl. Kaoru Uchiha was a fantastic cook. The soup was rich and savory, the fish perfectly tender, though Saitama couldn't recognize the kind of fish he was eating. I'm stuffed, Grandma. Saitama ate the last morsel and drained his bowl, flashing a smile at Uchiha Kaoru as if to prove he could eat anything. Want some more, Saitama? There's still some in the pot. I'll get it for you. Kaoru Uchiha reached for his bowl. No, Grandma. I'm good. You have some. Saitama pulled his bowl back, smiling warmly. Page 77. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In order to get Saitama to eat more, Uchiha Xiang had put extra servings of fish in her bowl. Saitama, knowing her grandmother wouldn't eat it until she finished hers, quickly cleaned her plate. Okay, go get some rest after you're done. I'm here, I'll clean up later, Uchiha Xiang said, glancing around the table with a smile, pointing towards the door with her chopsticks. Alright, sounds good. Saitama replied, getting up immediately. I'll wash the dishes later, so Grandma Xiang can eat in peace. Thinking this, Saitama decided to do some housework around the house, since she didn't have anything else going on, and Grandma Xiang was getting old. Being home is the best. Nothing beats home cooking, Saitama mused, recalling the meals on the front lines. They filled you up, sure, but they couldn't compare to this. Saitama changed shoes and headed upstairs. It was late December, and the new year was right around the corner. Next year, Saitama would turn 8. She'd been in this world for years now and was getting more used to this life as long as nobody messed with her peace. The room was warm, so Saitama took off his shirt and sat cross-legged on the tatami mat. Scars covered her thin body, some from missions right after graduation, others from the battlefield. Particularly noticeable scars marked her chest, back, and shoulders. Pulling a scroll from the side, Saitama unrolled it on her thigh. This was a ninjutsu scroll she'd written herself, detailing Thunder Chakra mode from beginning to end, along with her experience in manipulating Lightning Chakra. Touching her forehead, Saitama began to consider possible improvements, intending to refine the technique further. She had recently made a copy of this scroll for Shursui, but it hadn't been effective. Around this time, Kakashi should be working on a prototype of his Chidori, or maybe it's already developed. When will I get a chance to talk to him? Saitama knew there was a difference in power between her Chidori and the original. If Kakashi's Chidori was A level, hers was only B level. Maybe she could improve hers by talking to Kakashi. Resting her chin on her hand, Saitama's mind flooded with ideas, which she tried to memorize, planning to experiment with them later. Time flew by. Saitama went downstairs to wash the dishes, but otherwise stayed upstairs until midnight before finally going to bed. This place was dark and empty, filled with a maze of pipes, connected by a bridge. Silence. A collision echoed on the bridge. A figure appeared at one end, face obscured by the darkness. Mission failed. The target is much stronger than our intel suggested. On the other side of the bridge knelt a masked figure. Oh. You're saying we underestimated this Chunin? The standing figure spoke, his voice somewhat aged but still energetic. The target speed is incredible, ordinary Jonin can't keep up. I suffered at their hands myself. The kneeling figure said, reporting truthfully. Understood. You're dismissed. Yes, with that, the kneeling figure vanished, leaving the bridge silent once more. Uchiha Saitama? Interesting. I'm intrigued. What secrets does the Uchiha clan hold? Faint light pierced through the gaps in the pipes, illuminating half the shadow's body, revealing a face wrapped in bandages. Saitama, Saitama, Grandma Xiang's voice woke her. Saitama rubbed her eyes, reached for her knife, and sat up. Coming. Saitama rarely slept in. After dressing, washing, and putting on the necessary ninja gear, Saitama went downstairs. You don't look like a ninja anymore. Ninjas don't sleep in. Grandma Xiang teased as soon as Saitama reached the kitchen door. Yeah, well, I haven't slept this well in ages, Saitama replied, laughing to avoid the topic. It was after 7, and the sky was still dim, but Grandma Xiang always got up to cook around 6. Breakfast was rice balls and a bowl of seaweed soup. As usual, Saitama blew on the soup, took a sip, and glanced at Grandma Xiang, who was eating her rice balls slowly, looking content. This life isn't so bad, star. Grandma, I won't be home for lunch. The captain invited me to eat with him. After a few sips of soup, Saitama grabbed a rice ball and spoke. Uchiha Xiang knew Saitama had joined the family's guard team, headed by Uchiha Fugaku. It wasn't surprising that her boss had invited her to lunch, so she didn't think much of it. Nodding, Uchiha Xiang squinted at Saitama. Okay, I'll just cook for myself then. Sounds good. Saitama finished her rice ball in a couple of bites, then downed the soup, got up, and left the table. I'm going to go train. You eat slowly. Saitama said, opening the door and leaving. Youth is power. Heh. Kai. Page 78. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dad, Chiyu just stared, dazed. Instead of heading straight to the training ground after leaving his place, he'd wandered over to Konoha's main street, figuring he'd pick something up first. After all, he was visiting Fugaku Uchiha's house at noon, and showing up empty-handed would be a bad look, right? Guy. Let's run around Konoha. Let's sprint towards the very essence of youth. Yeah. 2 green blurs peeled off from Chiyu's side and took off. The older one even gave Chiyu a thumbs up as he went past. Were those Guy and his son? Chiyu followed them with his eyes, only to see a cloud of dust. Konoha could really use a sanitation department, which would alleviate employment issues. The dust cloud had Chiyu muttering to himself. Shaking it off, Chiyu continued his walk, unfazed. Guy and his son hadn't messed up his plans, and he kept looking for the right gift. Eventually, he settled on some pastries for Fugaku and Mikoto, whom he hadn't even met. Then, remembering that Itachi would be 2 or 3 years old right now, he went to the weapons shop and carefully picked out a short sword, a near replica in style and appearance to the one he'd gotten back then. Nothing too expensive, just a thoughtful gesture. The intent was all that mattered. Another morning of training, and the sweat was pouring. Shisui was absent today, so Chiyu's opponents were other members of the guard team. The power gap was so wide that Chiyu couldn't really cut loose, but it gave him the perfect opportunity to hone his snapshot ability. Chiyu. Mori's voice rang out from the sidelines. Just as Nagisa Uchiha's sword came at him, Chiyu vanished in an instant, reappearing right behind him. Thump, a leg landed on Nagisa Uchiha's shoulder, forcing him to one knee. Hold that thought, I'm gonna see what Mori wants. Chiyu told Nagisa Uchiha, deciding not to continue the fight since Mori had called him over. Of the current guard team members, Nagisa Uchiha was one of the strongest after Chiyu and Shisui. He happened to be at the training ground today, so Chiyu pulled him over as a sparring partner. Alright, you monster. How do you even get so strong? Nagisa rubbed his shoulder, shaking his head and grimacing. Later. Chiyu patted Nagisa, then headed toward Mori at the edge of the field. "What's up, Mori?" Chiyu asked as he approached, one hand resting on his sword hilt. Uchiha Mori seemed a little bashful today, his face unusually flushed. "Spit it out, don't be coy." Chiyu looked at Mori and couldn't help but chuckle. He'd never seen him act like a lovesick teenager before, unable to get the words out. "Oh, right, well, you're still young. You wouldn't get it." Mori's face turned even redder. "You mean what?" Chiyu was confused. "The wedding's on New Year's Day. Remember to come with Shursui." Mori stumbled through the sentence, obviously embarrassed. That's it?" Chiyu asked, taken aback. "Yep, that's it." Mori looked at Chiyu's calm reaction and figured he was probably too young to understand what marriage even meant. "Okay, I'll be there for sure." "But why the sudden wedding?" Chiyu pressed Mori. He hadn't heard anything about Mori having a girlfriend. Was this some kind of arranged marriage deal within the Uchiha clan? "No, the family's pushing for it, and Miko and I have been together for a few years, so it's time." Mori rubbed his face, looking even more uncomfortable. "Isn't the clan sending more people to the front lines next year?" "I'll definitely be going this time, so." Mori trailed off. "Right, what about Lin?" Chiyu was a little concerned about Lin. He'd only learned that Lin was Mori's younger brother after becoming friendly with him. Did Lin have any thoughts about Mori's wedding? "Lin's situation is urgent, so he probably won't be able to make it back." "Well then, I'll get all the guards together to celebrate for you. I don't have anything else to do. I'm heading back now. I probably won't be at the training ground for a few days." Mori turned and left, head down. Didn't expect Mori to be so shy. Usually, he acts like he's got everything under control. Shaking his head, Chiyu also prepared to leave the training ground. He took a shower in the locker room, changed into clean clothes, grabbed the gifts he'd bought in the morning, and headed out. Chapter 35. Some people, you never know when it will be the last time. The weather was good today, the sun shining brightly. It felt great in the middle of winter. The Uchiha clan compound was still bustling, and Chiyu could feel the family's vitality as he strolled down the street. "Hello." Chiyu rapped on the door of Uchiha Fugaku's house. The patriarch's place is something else. This door is huge. Chiyu stood at the door, impressed. Compared to his own place, this was on another level entirely, obviously a rich family. "Who are you looking for?" A childish voice asked from behind Chiyu, making him turn. He'd sensed someone approaching behind him when he knocked, but he hadn't paid attention. This was a street, after all. People came and went, looking at the kid, no more than half a meter tall. Chiyu caught a glimpse of the captain's adult form. "Itachi?" Chiyu smiled slightly and crouched down. You know me?" Itachi looked thoughtful, but he was sure he didn't recognize the guy in front of him. Page 79. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "Hey Itachi, I work for your dad. I'm here to see him today." Saitama looked like he was maybe 7 or 8, but something about him just didn't quite fit with being a kid. He reached out to pat Itachi on the head, but... whoops! His hand met empty air, making things super awkward. Itachi had already backed away, looking at him like he was some kind of creep. Saitama started to explain, pulling his hand back. Click. The door swung open. "Saitama, you're here early." Fugaku's voice boomed, and Itachi's eyes lit up. He skipped around Saitama and latched onto Fugaku's leg. "Dad." "Boss." Saitama turned and nodded, the awkwardness completely gone. "Alright, come on in." Fugaku waved him in, then ruffled Itachi's hair a few times. "Itachi, come on in with Saitama. Don't wander off. Saitama's our guest today, so be a good host." Fugaku flicked Itachi's forehead playfully. "Okay." Itachi nodded seriously, glancing at Saitama. following Fugaku into the living room. Saitama was still holding a gift. "Seriously, boss, you shouldn't have," Saitama said with a sheepish grin, handing Fugaku the pastries he'd bought. "Come on, man, just coming is enough. What's with the gifts?" Fugaku chuckled, taking the bag from Saitama. He gestured for Saitama to sit, then started unwrapping the pastries. "Whoa! Osmanthus cakes from downtown. Mikoto, your mom, loves these. Careful she doesn't snatch them all." Fugaku grinned, sitting next to Saitama. "Here, Itachi, this is for you." Even though Itachi had dodged the head pat, a gift was a gift. Saitama handed him the other box, smiling gently. "Huh?" Itachi looked surprised. "Itachi, don't just stand there." Fugaku prompted him gently. "Oh, thank you, Saitama. Brother Saitama." Itachi took the gift with both hands, bowing slightly at the end. "See if you like it," Saitama replied. "Okay." Itachi found a chair, climbed up, and started tearing into the package. "Wow!" Itachi was all kid again, unable to hide his excitement. He pulled out a toy ninja sword, almost as long as his arm, his mouth dropping open in a silent "oh." "Heh." Seeing the sword, Fugaku smiled at Saitama. "It's a practice sword, nothing sharp. Itachi can use it when he's a little older," Saitama explained. "Okay, thank you, brother Saitama." Itachi chirped, nodding enthusiastically before jumping off the chair, clutching the sword. "Gotta show mom," he yelled, disappearing from the living room. Now it was just Saitama and Fugaku, and the mood shifted. "Saitama," Fugaku said, leaning forward slightly. "Boss, just say the word. I'm all ears." Saitama knew Fugaku hadn't invited him over just for a snack. There was something else on his mind. "You're the most talented ninja in the Uchiha clan, and someone I trust completely," Fugaku said, his voice low. "Yeah," Saitama said, sitting up a little straighter, ready to listen. "The Uchiha clan's position in Konoha is getting more and more precarious." Fugaku gave a wry smile, his gaze drifting to the table, lost in thought. "To think, our ancestors co-founded Konoha with the first Hokage. And now, just a few decades later, we've fallen this far." There was helplessness in his voice, but also a deep sadness. "Don't beat yourself up, boss. This isn't what any of us wanted," Saitama said, sensing Fugaku blaming himself. "Every other major clan in Konoha has its place, but the Uchiha seem to be drifting further and further from the center. We have the security force in name, but it's an empty title. In peacetime, we're glorified security guards. In an emergency, it's all umbu, and we just assist. The security force was a joke from the start, just something to placate us." Fugaku's voice grew sharper, his fist clenching. "I get it," Saitama said, understanding the clan's situation better than Fugaku probably knew. He knew that after the nine-tailed fox attack, the Uchiha would hit rock bottom, silenced in Konoha. "So, I don't know what the future holds," Fugaku finished, seeming to release a breath he'd been holding. "Whatever happens, we stand with the clan," Saitama said, nodding firmly. "Seeing talented and loyal young guys like you, makes me proud to be the clan head." Fugaku straightened up, his tone becoming more cheerful. "Itachi. What are you hiding over there? Come on over here." Fugaku called out towards the doorway. "Okay, coming." Itachi peeked his head in, still clutching his new sword. He bounced in, whispered something to Fugaku, then ran back out. Fugaku's expression didn't change, but Itachi had whispered in his ear, "I'll stand with Dad too." "Alright, let's eat." Fugaku grabbed the osmanthus cakes off the table, set them aside, and gestured for Saitama to follow him to the dining room. This place was huge, like you'd expect from a big family. Page 80. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Saitama, pull up a chair. Saitama followed him into the restaurant and saw Mikoto Uchiha bustling around while Itachi darted back and forth. "Hey, Auntie!" Saitama greeted. It was the first time he'd met Mikoto. "Well, hello." Mikoto replied, placing a dish on the table and tucking a stray hair behind her ear. "Make yourself at home," Fugaku said with a wave of his hand. They all sat down and began to eat. Just the four of them, but the table was covered with food, shrimp, fish, all kinds of vegetables. "Auntie, your cooking is amazing," Saitama said, giving a thumbs up after devouring a shrimp the size of his arm. "Eat up if you like it." "Roger that," Saitama nodded, ditching politeness. "You don't get a chance to impress a big family every day." Fugaku and Mikoto exchanged glances, while Itachi just stared blankly at the last shrimp. The dishes were disappearing quickly, mostly into Saitama's stomach. "Huh, that was delicious." Saitama patted his stomach, completely at ease. Haha. Fugaku chuckled, at a loss for words. He hadn't realized Saitama had such a huge appetite. Luckily, Mikoto had made extra dishes in anticipation of their guest. "Saitama, are you full? Should I make more?" Mikoto was a little flustered. Fugaku had mentioned a visit from a 7-year-old subordinate for lunch. To uphold the clan's honor, she deliberately made more food, but it seemed like it wasn't enough. Mikoto glanced at her son, who was holding a shrimp, unsure whether to eat it or not. "No, I'm stuffed. It's been a while since I've eaten this much. This shrimp was awesome. Thanks for having me." Saitama touched the shrimp shells on the table. The shrimp was incredibly tender and delicious, rivaling the Australian lobster he'd had back in his old life. "Ha!" Fugaku smiled again, picking up his rice bowl. "Big brother Saitama, can I give you this shrimp?" Itachi held out his small hand, a hint of reluctance in his expression. The kid who'd given him the ninja knife seemed to really like shrimp, and Itachi decided to go without. "Huh. Itachi, you eat it. I'm good." Saitama blushed slightly and insisted that Itachi eat it himself. "Okay." Seeing that Saitama wasn't going to take it, Itachi happily pulled his hand back, broke the shrimp in half, and put the pieces in Mikoto and Fugaku's bowls. "Thank you, Itachi." Mikoto said with a gentle smile. What a happy family. Saitama thought, looking at the harmonious scene before him. "Saitama, come to my office tomorrow. I have a mission for you. Right now, you and Mori are the only ones I trust to handle it and have the skills to pull it off. Shursui isn't ready yet." Standing at the door, Fugaku saw Saitama off. Itachi stood next to Fugaku's leg, leaning against his thigh. "Sure, Captain. It's time to get back in action after being laid up so long." Saitama agreed. He knew how missions worked during wartime. While the daimyo would provide funding, nobody complained about having extra cash. Judging from Fugaku's expression, this mission wouldn't be a walk in the park. "See you later, Captain." "Bye, Itachi." He crouched down and patted Itachi's head. This time, Itachi didn't flinch and let Saitama have his way. Then, Saitama turned and left. "Goodbye, Saitama-san." Itachi called out cheerfully, bouncing up and down, waving his hands. He liked Saitama, even if he was always trying to touch his head. "Come on inside, Itachi." Seeing Saitama leave, Fugaku's eyes gleamed with thought as he pulled Itachi back into the house. How can we change the Uchiha clan's fate? A storm is brewing. Fugaku felt a pang of worry and hoped that these talented youngsters would grow up quickly. Looking down at Itachi bouncing at his feet, Fugaku made up his mind. I can handle the Uchiha clan's problems for now. But someone always has to carry the burden forward, right? Chapter 36, The key to friendship is assuming good intentions. After lunch, Saitama didn't go home, but went straight to the training grounds. "Saitama, can you tell me more about that chakra nature transformation you were talking about last time? As soon as he arrived, Uchiha Nagisa cornered him. Nagisa was one of the few in the Uchiha clan to possess the rare wind attribute. Unlike those flashy guys who only used fire release, his wind release was more refined. Didn't you say you didn't believe me? Saitama scratched his head, surprised by the change in Nagisa's attitude. Hey, it's not like that. I messed up, Saitama. Nagisa's expression faltered, then he blushed, embarrassed. Last time, Saitama had shared his insights on wind release chakra nature transformation, but Nagisa had been skeptical. Practice with leaves? You gotta be kidding me, Star. Even though he knew Saitama was skilled with lightning release, he'd never seen him use wind release ninjutsu, so he hadn't taken it seriously. Then, yesterday, out of boredom, Nagisa had recalled Saitama's words and tried practicing with leaves. As you can imagine, he'd had a breakthrough. He who had been unable to find his direction now seemed to see the way to the future, and that way was through Saitama. Heh, so you went back and tried it? Saitama said with a knowing smile. Saitama, you're amazing. Tell me the rest. Alright, let's see how you perform in the sparring match this afternoon. Saitama glanced around, not seeing Shursui, and grinned at Nagisa.